My mom took my husband's side in court, helped ruin my life, and abandoned me and my son. Now that I'm celebrating his first birthday without her, she's accusing me of keeping her from her grandchild. But I'm not backing down. It's a chilling thought, but imagine your own mother testifying against you in court, siding with the man who utterly destroyed your life. That's exactly what happened to me, and it left me completely shattered, believing his lies, and cutting off all contact with me and my fatherless son. For the last couple of years, my life has been a relentless uphill battle. I'm only just now finding my footing again, and honestly, it's been brutal because I've had absolutely no support. And who do I blame for most of this mess? My ex-husband, Ezra. He's the one who pretty much ruined my life and then just left me. Ezra and I were together for 2 years before we got married, and then married for 3 more before he decided to walk out on me last year. I was in my second trimester, pregnant with our child. We met when we were 22, fresh out of college, both new employees at the same company. We worked together for a few months and then he asked me out. Everything was amazing while we were dating. We fell in love, decided to get married, and that's when everything went wrong. I think once that ring was on my finger, once he knew I was totally committed, he just started taking me for granted. First, he convinced me to quit my job and become a full-time stay-at-home wife, managing the household. I was hesitant at first, but my mom had been a stay-at-home mom, and my dad always treated her with such respect, so I thought, why not? Big mistake. Ezra was nothing like my father. Within 6 months of me quitting, we started having money trouble. We both worked in sales, so it was all commission-based, and I guess he wasn't doing well. I tried to talk to him about me going back to work since we were clearly struggling, but he got so defensive, so egotistical. He accused me of not trusting him, of thinking he wasn't capable of managing our finances. He told me to stick to my work around the house, and not worry about money. We fought constantly about it because I felt so disrespected, especially since we were burning through my savings way faster than I ever wanted to. But after every fight, he'd apologize, he'd manipulate me emotionally, and I, still so in love, would forgive him. It became this exhausting cycle. Disrespect, apology, makeup, repeat. At the time, I truly believed I could make it work. I put up with it for so long, but even that wasn't enough. Eventually, he filed for divorce. And to avoid paying alimony, he went to extreme lengths to make me look like a cheater. Last year, when I was about 10 weeks pregnant, my high school ex-boyfriend reached out. His name is David. If he'd just been a casual fling, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but David and I had a long, complicated history. We started dating at 13, and he was my first and only serious boyfriend before Ezra. We were together for 6 years before we mutually broke up in college. He went to an out-of-state college, and the long distance just wasn't working. We decided to end things amicably. After that, we tried to stay friends, but we just drifted apart. Once I met Ezra, no one else stood a chance. I was completely head over heels for him. Ezra knew all about David, and he never had an issue with him. So when I asked if I could meet David for coffee, since we hadn't seen each other in ages, Ezra agreed without a single complaint. I knew David had moved to New Zealand after college to live with his uncle, and he rarely ever visited home. This was a proper vacation for him. A chance to see everyone. Ezra knew all of this. I even showed him David's message, which was purely platonic. There was nothing romantic about it at all. But in court, Ezra twisted everything. He made it sound like I'd always been secretly in love with David, and that our coffee meeting was just the first of many clandestine encounters, even though it was the only time I'd seen him since our breakup. He had no evidence, just claimed he saw us holding hands but was too horrified to take a picture. And what was even worse, he convinced a couple of our mutual friends to testify against me. But the final crushing blow? My own mother. We'd been fighting a lot while I was pregnant anyway. The fights got worse as Ezra became more agitated about money, and with a baby on the way, I couldn't even blame him entirely. I tried to cut our expenses, but even that would make him mad. So I started relying on my own savings without telling him, just so he wouldn't question his ability to support us. But I guess none of it was enough. After a particularly bad fight, where he called me and our unborn baby parasites. And trust me, I wasn't even mad about the name-calling, but dragging our innocent child into it? Unacceptable. He served me with divorce papers. I was in absolute shock. My first instinct was to apologize, to beg him to stay. But it didn't work. He told me he was leaving that day and wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. True to his word, he packed his bags and left. Soon after, he sent legal documents seeking to terminate his parental rights. A friend who works at a law firm connected me with one of their best divorce attorneys and even paid for her, since I could barely afford it. It took me a week to decide, but I finally realized I'd been so unhappy in that marriage anyway. The only reason I was begging him to stay was because I was used to him. But this was a chance to start fresh, and it would be foolish to let it go, especially with a baby on the way. I wasn't going to let my bad decisions ruin my child's life. So I agreed to the divorce, but I wanted alimony. Just enough to support myself until I could get back on my feet and find a job. I thought it was fair. He convinced me to quit my job, and now he was leaving me. It was on him to make sure I was taken care of. That's when the real nastiness started. He refused to pay a dime of alimony. He started twisting facts, claiming I was a flirt who constantly hit on other people right in front of him. He said I'd been living off his money for 3 years, that I had quit my job on my own and expected him to take care of everything. He even claimed the baby wasn't his idea, that he hadn't been fine with it, but I'd gone ahead with the pregnancy anyway. So no, he didn't owe me alimony, he said, because this was just my way of trying to squeeze more money out of him after I had supposedly drained his savings. The only way his savings were drained was trying to impress people, while I was draining mine trying to support us. And then of course he brought up David again. He accused me of having an affair, saying he'd seen us together but had forgiven me because he wanted to make it work. But now he couldn't anymore. Things got so messy, so ugly. My friends testified for me, telling the truth. But he got his friends to completely assassinate my character, making me out to be some gold-digging flirt. I even got David to testify, to confirm he'd only been in the country for a month, that he'd only met me once. But Ezra claimed we were lying. And somehow he even got to my mother. The ultimate betrayal was when my mom testified against me. She claimed it was totally believable that I was having an affair with David because I'd always had a soft spot for him. And as far as she knew Ezra, he would never do anything to hurt me. So I was probably lying. When it was all said and done, I got no alimony and my mother cut me off. He also managed to terminate his parental rights. Honestly, I'm glad he did, because I wouldn't want someone like him in my son's life anyway. At least I still get child support no matter how small the amount. After the divorce, I realized I had to move forward. No time for crying. I started applying for jobs immediately. The divorce was finalized a month after my son was born, and being heavily pregnant during the process made it impossible to get hired. So I lived with my friend who'd helped me with the lawyer. She was kind enough to cover all my expenses. A month after giving birth, I got a job. It didn't pay much and I couldn't afford to move out for a few months, but eventually I saved enough to get a small apartment. Everything has been a huge struggle, but with a little help from my friends and a few family members, I've made it work, juggling work and motherhood. I always felt guilty leaving my son with others while I was at work, but I knew I had to. To make up for that, I decided to splurge on his first birthday party, which is coming up in a week. I've sent invitations to all my friends, the family members who've been there for me, and a few coworkers. It's going to be expensive, but I got a new job 2 months ago that pays much better so I can afford it. Plus, I've started repaying all my debts. I figured I could spend a little on my son, but somehow my mother found out about the party, and she was offended that she hadn't been invited. Which honestly is baffling considering she's a huge reason I've had to struggle so hard to give my son a good life. She unblocked me on social media and messaged me a few days ago. Not an apology, not a hint of remorse. Just entitlement. She said she was very offended she hadn't been invited, that she was the grandmother, and probably the only grandparent in the picture since my in-laws have no contact with me and my dad passed away years ago. Then she accused me of alienating her grandchild and demanded an invitation. She didn't stop there. She said she wanted to be actively involved in her grandson's life and wouldn't tolerate my narcissistic, selfish behavior anymore. I was shocked by her audacity. After everything she'd done, not only did her testimony make me lose alimony, but she was the one who cut me off, who blocked me everywhere after Ezra manipulated her. I still can't wrap my head around how someone gets manipulated into testifying against their own daughter. But that's what happened. It clearly means she doesn't love or trust me enough. I still remember, after her testimony, when I confronted her, asking why on earth she'd do something like that, she replied that she wanted nothing to do with me or my fatherless son, that she didn't owe me an explanation because I was a cheater and I had failed her. Then she blocked me. So, yeah, I think she's the narcissistic and selfish one. She didn't even bother to apologize, just started making demands as if she was entitled to them. When I read that message, I lost it. I replied immediately, telling her I wasn't inviting her to anything, that she didn't deserve to be a part of my life or my son's life anymore. She was a huge reason we struggled for the past year, and since she can't fix our life, she doesn't deserve to be a part of it either. Then I blocked her. I thought that would be the end. But now she started contacting all my friends, family members, even some acquaintances from school, trying to get me to talk to her. She wants to explain why she did what she did. She says she's sorry for how she treated me, even apologetic about her tone in that last message. She just wants one chance to talk, to explain, so I can have all the facts, and then decide if I want her in my life. Here's the thing. I don't even want to give her a chance. I don't want to hear her reasons. In my opinion, no reason could ever be good enough to ruin my life as my mother. And that's the truth. I've been hesitant to tell people this because it might sound cold-hearted, but I've just been in two minds about what to say. I've decided. I'm not changing my mind. I thought about it long and hard, and I honestly couldn't think of a single explanation she could give me that would make me forgive her. What she did was unforgivable, and I want nothing to do with her. I've told all my friends and family who she's been reaching out to that I appreciate them passing on her messages, but I really want nothing to do with her. And if she contacts them again, I've asked them to just block her. This isn't something they need to be involved in, and I don't understand why she's dragging them into it anyway. It's been a few days since then, and my son's birthday is in just 2 days. That's my focus now. All the arrangements are made, just some last-minute things to take care of. I'm trying to keep myself busy, to not think about the situation with my mother. I've been suppressing all of this for a long time, and it's been easy because I'm so busy all the time. It's easy to keep myself occupied so I don't have to think about last year or even before that. Ezra and I were always wrong for each other. But now with my mother reaching out, it's become hard to pretend none of that ever happened and just keep moving on. I allowed myself to get weak for a couple of days to let this take over my life, but I'm back to normal now. I know I have to power through all of this for my son, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have no time for people like them. I know it's probably not the right approach, and before anyone comments, I'm aware of it. But I can't afford therapy right now, not financially, and I truly don't have the time for it. Maybe someday when I'm more financially stable, I'll think about unpacking all of this with a professional. Until then, I guess I'll just keep doing whatever has worked. Anyway, thank you to everyone who commented with advice. It was all really helpful and definitely made me feel much better. So my son's birthday was almost 2 months ago. Back then, after I told everyone to ignore my mom's messages, they did, and she stopped contacting me. For the past year, I'd been too busy to attend family events, and everyone understood why. But last week, I finally took some time off and went to my cousin's engagement party with my son. And that's where I finally saw my mother in person after over a year. I was taken aback running into her, but after the initial shock, I decided to just ignore her and enjoy the party. For the first hour, we didn't speak. Then she came up to me and started making small talk. She seemed happy to see my son and tried to interact with him, but he was really shy and just kept hiding behind me. There were a lot of people there and I didn't want to be rude or throw a tantrum, so I was polite. I told her a bit about my job and my son, and she mentioned wanting to grab lunch soon if I was open to it. Again, she started saying she had a lot to say about everything. That's when I told her I was glad she was trying to make amends, but I really didn't want that for myself right now. I told her the conversation was over and I walked away. Surprisingly, she was respectful of it and didn't bother me again. I've been thinking about it a lot. I might not forgive her even after hearing her out, but I really do want to know what she has to say. I'm not doing this to salvage our relationship or anything. I have no hopes like that. It's purely out of curiosity that I want to meet her and hear her out. I've talked to a couple of friends about it, And they think if I want an explanation and maybe some closure, then I should definitely talk to her because it'll probably help me. So after a lot of thought, I unblocked her yesterday and messaged her. I told her I'd like to grab lunch with her today. I'm not taking my son because I'm still not sure if I want to forgive her. And if I don't want her to get attached. I just got back from lunch with my mom about 2 hours ago, and boy, there's a lot to unpack. As soon as I got to the restaurant, she started thanking me for even showing up. Once we ordered, she didn't waste any time. She immediately told me that last year, Ezra had visited her. He showed her so many screenshots and pictures, completely convincing her that I'd been cheating on him with David. He even went as far as showing her a screenshot from David where he was supposedly bragging about how we were going to take Ezra's money and go live together. Ezra told my mother he hadn't presented any of this to his lawyer because he didn't want to humiliate me even more since he still loved me. I think the real reason was probably because all of it was made up, photoshopped, and completely fake. It was just enough to convince my mother because she had no other way to confirm the truth, and it must have seemed real to her. But experts would have found out the truth anyway. That's how he got her to testify against me. She'd been so upset with me. But when she heard about her grandson's first birthday, she felt even worse. She wasn't just losing time with me, a cheater, but she was losing time with him too. All because of my mistakes. That's why she was so entitled in her first message to me. But after the message I sent her back, she started doubting herself. That's when she reached out to David to ask if he'd ever sent any message to Ezra. And he showed her proof that he hadn't ever even spoken to Ezra. That made her realize Ezra had probably lied. So she tried to contact him, and he hung up on her as soon as she asked him about it. That's when she realized what a huge mistake she had made. She tried to get everyone to talk to me to get me to unblock her, but by then it was too late. I had decided I didn't want to forgive her or even hear her out. She completely understood why I didn't want to give her a chance. She told me that if she'd been in my place, she probably wouldn't have wanted to hear me out either, because this was a huge betrayal. So she didn't bother me further. She'd been trying to be respectful of my boundaries, but she knew she wanted me to know the truth about what had happened because she could finally help me. Maybe we could even go back to court and get Ezra to pay the alimony he owed me, since the only way he got out of it the first time was by accusing me of cheating and lying about everything. She believed we definitely had grounds to ask for alimony now, and with her help we could get it done. It was a lot to process and I don't know how to feel about any of it. I told her I needed some time to think things over, and that's what I'm doing now. All of this has been heavy and I feel really weird. I don't know if I want to forgive her. I don't know if I even can because I've gotten used to being mad at her. I'm trying to understand her point of view, but it's difficult. I don't know if I should go back to court and demand alimony again, if there's even any point to it anymore. I just don't have any answers for anything right now. I guess I'll have to take my time and think about everything before I do something. Hey guys, so it's been close to 6 months since my last update, and here's what happened. I decided to go back to court to enforce alimony payments. We went through the whole negotiations again, but this time my mother was on my side. I even reached out to all of Ezra's friends who had testified against me the first time around. He had manipulated them, so I decided to do the same, and I played the most emotional card I could think of. The struggling single mother, all because of you guys card. Technically, it wasn't even a card, it was just the truth I used against them. And I guess a lot of them were already feeling quite guilty for testifying against me, because they were ready to testify in my favor this time with the truth. When I told Ezra about it, I said I was willing to give him a chance to settle out of court, as long as he coughed up the money he owed me. I guess he knew there was no way out, so he agreed. And now I'll be receiving checks every month until I decide to remarry. If I wanted to get back at him, I'd decide never to marry again, but I don't think I'm going to do that because I've recently started talking to David again. He reached out to me recently to apologize for not telling me about it when my mother had contacted him, asking if he'd ever spoken to Ezra. He said he had wanted to bring it up with me, but at the time we hadn't been on talking terms because of the divorce and everything, and it was just awkward. He reached out to me back then, and since then we've just never stopped talking. We're still figuring things out, but I've started developing feelings for him again. And he's confessed that he never really fell out of love with me anyway, which is why he hasn't been able to get serious with anyone else. He lives in New Zealand and keeps trying to get me to visit him, and I just might do that soon. My mother and I are also working things out, and it's going well so far. Honestly, I'm just figuring things out for myself at the moment. I'm not too sure about anything, but I know that I'm loved and that's all that matters. But my priority right now is my son, and that'll always be true, no matter what happens.